So when the subject of fats comes up, very often it's all lumped together, saying lower your fat, have this much fat. Could you tell me which are the worst fats and which are the best fats? So on a gradation of the worst fat you could possibly eat to the best fat you could possibly eat, how should we be thinking about fat?
Well, that's a biggie. You kick it off.
I'll start. Well, in my view, the healthiest fats are fats that are packaged in whole plant foods with phytochemicals and fiber and antioxidants. So we're looking at things like nuts and seeds and avocados, and so whole plant foods. So to me, when you extract and concentrate fats, it's kind of like extracting and concentrating sugars. You're losing the fiber and a lot of the vitamins and minerals. But if we just look at sort of the worst and the best fats, the best, like I say, whole plant foods. The worst are, of course, the extracted fats that are taken and processed into trans fatty acids. So they are absolutely, bar none, the worst.
Explain how they do that, because most people don't know.
Yeah, so basically you take a liquid oil and you add hydrogen under pressure to turn it into a solid fat.
Margarine.
So you've got what happens when you're hydrogenating is you're adding hydrogen. So a fat that's saturated, all it means is it's saturated with hydrogen. It's got hydrogen there are no double bonds. Hydrogen fills that molecule. Now with a trans fat, so as you're hydrogenating, right before you completely saturate the molecule, the two, the double bond, the two hydrogens are sitting on the same side of the molecule. Well, one flips down to the other side to get prepared to be completely saturated. And they stop the process, and you've got this thing called a trans fatty acid. And so these, we know, are probably 2 or 3 times worse per gram than saturated fat. And so we're getting them out of the food supply because the evidence is so overwhelming that they're lethal. They're extremely damaging to human health.
Isn't it now, as of this year, they're not allowed?
Yeah, exactly. 2018 is it. The manufacturers have to get rid of them from the food supply. So this was in 2015 that they gave manufacturers 3 years. It's now 2018. So we won't have to worry about them as much, although there are trans fatty acids that form naturally in animal products. So about 10% of the trans fatty acids in the diet were, from animal products like meat and dairy. And those, of course, people who are consuming those foods, you're not completely getting rid of trans fatty acids. And the next on the list to me would be saturated fats, and especially saturated fats from animal products. All foods that have fat have some saturated fat. So it's not that it's a poison, it's just that we're consuming way too many. And then, next on the list would be, to me, well, maybe even higher on the list would be damaged fats. So when you heat fat to a high temperature, you're forming products of oxidation that are very harmful to human health. And so I think these 3 would be on my sort of the worst 3 list.
No, I agree. I was going to, because you added it to yourself. You said maybe even worse than a natural saturated fat would be these vegetable oils that are heated at high temperature, because they can become rancid, they have oxidative changes, and they become carcinogens. And they become mutagenic and teratogenic, and they cause birth defects and DNA defects. And so what I'm saying right now is the data suggests that that even in moderate use, they're particularly dangerous. For example, a study showed that 1 serving of commercial French fries a week, it's moderate use, just once a week, increases later life risk of breast cancer by 26%. That's 1 serving a week.
Repeat that again for them.
Yeah. That one French fry, commercial French fries, serving per week increase risk of breast cancer by 26%, and these things increase risk of cancer in a dose-dependent manner. So it's much more dangerous than smoking a cigarette. You don't increase your lung cancer by 26% by smoking 1 cigarette. Maybe not even 1 pack a week would increase your risk by 26%. Heated oils are particularly dangerous. So I think if we're rating fats, we have to consider that one of the top factors there, especially when you're in a restaurant that's keeping the oil under heat for many hours, and they're cooking your food in oil that's been heated over and over again. So that's really dangerous to eat fast food.
Yeah, so you buy the best oil, you buy extra virgin, the first press, organic, and then you take home and fry. It just doesn't even make sense. It turns to carcinogen, so never heat it up, absolutely never. No oils can be heated up, no matter what you hear about coconut oil and this oil, none of the oils can be heated up.
Well, I'm always telling you the sad and bad news, so I'll be the guy that says what good oils are. And so I'm writing a book now with a group of wonderful scientists out of Israel on clary sage oil. And this isn't a commercial. Here in America out west, we take sage and we put it in big piles and we burn it because we say, oh, that damn stuff's messing everything up. They studied it in Israel, God bless their soul. And they found out that there's an omega-3 that's the most stable form, less oxidative form of omega-3 than any land-based oil they found so far. So we've been utilizing this for about 3.5 years. And one of our physicians, Dr. Willix, it's funny, he's just become one of our 2 physicians, has been doing the same kind of work with his patients. Now, he was a cardiovascular surgeon, so he sees it through a different window, and it's nice to compare. I'm trying to get him to co-author this book with me. The other thing is that we've been using blue-green algae as a big part, as I pointed out today. The first life form, second life form, third life form is the core of the Hippocrates diet. And blue-green algae has the only essential fat that's identical to the fat your brain's made of. Everything else, including clary sage oil, has to, in a minuscule way, go through the blood-brain barrier and hope to manufacture that fat. Then, the usual suspects are not bad. The usual suspects, chia, sprouted chia seeds. At night when I'm home and Anna Marie and I are putting seeds in our salad, we put 5 seeds. Sprouted chia, sprouted sesame, sprouted flax, sprouted hemp, and pumpkin seeds. And why sprouted? Because you liberate it. It's very, very difficult, even for very healthy people, to digest these things. These seeds have encapsulated shells in them. When you open them up and liberate them, they become plants. And as I pointed out through the anthropology you saw today, that our original diet was leafy greens and fruits. It wasn't even nuts and seeds. And we eat nuts and seeds, which are much, much better than meats and dairies and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, now we know for sure. It's not a question anymore. If you look at the indentation on the teeth of what people ate over hundreds of thousands and millions of years, they found out that our ancestors, as well as Homo sapiens, have been eating fruits and leaves. And when there were droughts, yes, they ate nuts and seeds, etc. But if you sprout them, you are eating leaves at that point. They become germinated. That's where the phytochemical enhances 30, 40, 50, 60 times. That's the medicine. I mean, at the punchline, no matter what any of us say, the most impressive thing we can tell you, why people heal disease on the program is not because of what we take away, it's because of what's in there, called a phytochemical that kills and prevents disease.
And of course, it's both. Now, within nuts and seeds are sterols and stanols that bind fat tightly like a magnet. So when you get your fat from nuts and seeds, all the fat is not biologically accessible to the body because a percentage of that fat is sucked out into the toilet bowl, increasing stool fat. More fat in the toilet bowl means less fat on you. Now, the particular magnetic effect of the sterols and stanols and nuts and seeds that attract fat have an affinity for saturated fat and LDL cholesterol more strongly than regular mono and polyunsaturates. In other words, if we analyze the fat that's in the toilet bowl, it's the oxidized LDL that was in your bloodstream that came out in the toilet bowl as a result of eating nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds lower LDL cholesterol, but they particularly lower oxidized LDL, the most dangerous type of LDL, because they suck it out, because fat goes in both directions. It goes from the digestive tract into the bloodstream, and it goes from the bloodstream into the digestive tract. And the magnet to suck out those bad fats are these beneficial nuts and seeds.
And oxidized LDL causes heart disease and cancer.